Week 8 of the fantasy baseball season. Here's a few hitters I look to buy and trade for this week. The first guy, Nick Castellanos. The Philadelphia Phillies had Castellanos. His numbers aren't totally bad this season, but the power and the RBIs just haven't been there on the season. 5 home runs, 26 RBIs, 33 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 296 average, and a 343 on base. But the last 2 weeks, he really hasn't done much for fantasy owners. No home runs, 2 RBIs. 2 stolen bases, 5 runs scored, a 234 average, and a 275 on base for Castellanos. So over the last couple seasons, the power numbers have gone down. After a few years ago, he did hit 30-plus home runs, was Castellanos. And you would think over there in Philly, in the bandbox, they hit a lot of home runs and in a good lineup with great hitters like Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Trey Turner, and guys like that. But obviously that hasn't come to fruition. But he's still in the middle of the lineup, batting anywhere from second to fourth is Castellanos. But the power definitely has been an issue since he's arrived in Philly last year. So on the last few games here for Castellanos, May 19th versus the Cubs 0-for-2 a rib. May 20th versus the Cubs 1-for-4 a run. May 21st versus the Cubs 2-for-4. May 22nd versus the Diamondbacks 0-for-5. May 23rd versus the Diamondbacks 1-for-3 with a run. And May 24th versus the Diamondbacks 0-for-4. So right now, not much going on with Castellanos. I know the average overall this season is solid, like I said, at 296. But besides that, he really hasn't done much for fantasy owners except averaging on base. But I think as the weather gets warmer and he just gets more accustomed, I guess, to Philadelphia's Castellanos, the power will start coming like we saw it last season in the second half. He hit more home runs than he did in the first half. So right now, I think a decent starting pitcher you got to give up to him, but nothing over the top to buy him a little bit low this week. The next hit is Chris Bryant of the Colorado Rockies. So Chris Bryant, he signed that 7-year contract last offseason with the Rockies, and so far he hasn't lived up to it. Is Bryant. Last year missed most of the year with injury, and so far this season his average is good and on base, but everything else pretty much non-existent for fantasy owners. 5 homers, 17 RBIs, 17 runs scored, a 287 average, and a 364 on base for Bryant. So a few years ago with the Cubs and Giants, he had a monster season, but this year the power and RBIs are way down for Bryant. In the last 2 weeks, no homers, 4 RBIs, and 2 runs scored only. So Chris Bryant, he's not hitting for power, he's not driving in runs, and it's not like he's down in the lineup over there for the Rockies. He's batting second or third usually for this Rocky team, but he's just not producing. And the numbers, like I said, I would expect way more from him, especially in Coors Field. Or maybe it's an injury, or maybe he's just washed up. Who knows at this point here with Chris Bryant? It seems like every other season he has a good year, and then every other season a bad year for Bryant. So the last few games for him: May 19th at the Rangers 0-for-4, May 20th at the Rangers 0-for-1, May 21st at the Rangers 1-for-3, May 22nd versus the Marlins 1-for-4 run and a rib, and then May 24th versus the Marlins 0-for-4 in that game. So right now he's not hitting. I definitely think he could turn it around, and like I said, playing in Coors Field, especially as it heats up in the summer over there, that ball's going to carry even more. And I think Chris Bryant, he's going to get his stats going over there for this Colorado Rocky team. He's just too good of a hitter, and I think it's still too early in his career for him to be totally washed up and not producing at all. So right now, while he's been non-existent stat-wise for fantasy owners, he's a guy you could go out there and you don't got to give up much in a deal, a low-end starting pitcher, or just another hitter that's off to a hot start. But obviously with no track record, I think you get a deal done for Bryant this week. Next hit is Contreras, the St. Louis Cardinals. So obviously the Cardinals signed him to a 5-year deal in the offseason. They didn't want him to play catcher, and now he's been struggling over the last few weeks. He had a little bit of a resurgence there after they benched him from catching and put him at DH was his Cardinal team. But on the season, the numbers are poor: 5 home runs, 25 RBIs, 21 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 233 average, and a 315 on base. And over the last couple weeks here, 3 homers, 9 RBIs, 4 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, but a 151 average and a 250 on base. So right now, Wilson Contreras, he's not contributing. Like I said, he signed that huge contract in the offseason, a 5-year deal, about $90 million with this St. Louis Cardinal team. And the Cardinals obviously were down on him as well, removed him catcher for a little bit. And you would think he'd be producing in a lineup where he's going to see a lot of good pitches with hitters like Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, and Tommy Edman in this lineup, but obviously that hasn't been the case, especially the last few weeks. May 20th versus the Dodgers, 1 for 4 in RBI. May 21st versus the Dodgers, 0 for 5. May 22nd at the Reds, 0 for 4. May 23rd at the Reds, 0 for 4. And May 24th at the Reds, 0 for 3 in that one. So right now, he's in a pretty bad slump, is Wilson Contreras, where he hasn't gotten a hit now in his last 16 at-bats. So he's not hitting the baseball. He's striking out a whole lot as well over the last few games, is Contreras. But I think he could turn things around. And like I said, I think he just got to get more pitches as the season goes on, playing with guys like Goldschmidt and Arenado. He's just due to see better pitches. He's due to have better hitter counts. And like I said, he's in the middle of the order, 3rd or 5th, and we know catch is a weak position in fantasy baseball. So right now, while Contreras hasn't done much, I think it's time to go out there and make a deal for him, because he definitely could turn things around quickly. And last season he had a good year, so I don't think in 1 year it's going to fall off for him. He had 22 homers and 55 RBI. So right now, go out there and get Contreras before I could see a breakout happening. The next hit is Ryan Mountcastle of the Baltimore Orioles. So Mountcastle got off to a hot start in the first month of the season, but of late he's really struggled as Mountcastle, besides the occasional home run here and there. On the season, 11 home runs, 35 RBIs, 32 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 237 average, and a 270 on base. So right now, his on base to batting average ratio isn't good at all, only 33 points higher for Mountcastle. So he's a free swinger. He strikes out a whole ton, 49 strikeouts in 200 at-bats for Mountcastle on the season. And over the last couple weeks, like I said, besides the home runs, the numbers are way down there. 3 homers, 9 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a 163 batting average, and a 245 on base. For Mountcastle, we know he's got a lot of power. We know he's a former top prospect in this Baltimore system, and I think he could break out and get things going once again. But obviously, you're not going to get a good on-base percentage from him. He's not going to really draw walks, and he's a free swinger. Like I said, May 18th versus the Angels, 0 for 4 ribs. May 19th at the Jays, 1 for 3, a homer, 3 RBIs. May 20th, the Jays, 0 for 4 with 2 runs. May 21st at the Blue Jays, 0 for 5. May 23rd at the Yankees, 1 for 4 with 2 runs. And May 24th at the Yankees in that one, 1 for 3 with a homer. So right now, the power is still there occasionally for Mountcastle. But besides that, he's either a home run or a strikeout, it seems like, for Mountcastle. But he's definitely got legit power, and he's a guy that could get hot at any time for fantasy owners. Last season, a solid year, 22 and 85. And I think this season it's still possible. He hits 25 to 30 home runs. So right now, while Mountcastle's been disappointing over the last few weeks, it's a good time to buy him. And the 5th and final hitter I look to buy this week, Ozzie Albies of the Atlanta Braves. Albies, just like Mountcastle, got off to the hot start the first month of the season, but now he's fizzled out as well over the last few weeks. On the season, 10 home runs, 32 RBIs, 21 runs scored, a stolen base, a 257 average, and a 300 on base. But the last 2 weeks here for Albies, 1 homer, 5 RBIs, 5 runs scored, a 182 average, and a 250 on base. So that's not going to cut it with the low batting average over time. And second base is a weak position, but Albies, he's just a streak hitter throughout his career. But when it's all said and done, the stats are there for Albies, where you look and he's going to have 25 home runs. He's going to have about 90 to 100 RBIs driven in. And that's what it's going to be once again for Albies. He'll hit anywhere 240s, 250 range. We know he's a solid ball player. We know he plays in a great lineup with guys like Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Michael Harris, even though it's been a down year for him. Sean Murphy, who's been a good pickup. So there's a lot of protection in the lineup. We know he's a good hitter, is Albies, and he's going to turn things around, I believe. So right now, while he really hasn't done much in the month of May, is Albies. This is a perfect time to buy him low. The last few games for May 19th versus the Mariners, 1 for 3 run. May 20th, 0 for 3 versus the Mariners. May 21st versus the Mariners, 0 for 3. May 22nd versus the Dodgers, 0 for 4. May 23rd versus the Dodgers, 2 for 4. And May 24th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 2 with a run and a rib. So right now, not producing his Albies. But I think he's going to turn things around. And he's too talented of a hitter with a lot of great hitters in the lineup over there in Atlanta. So he's definitely a hitter I would make a deal for this week. And I think a decent starting pitcher and a deal you would have to give up for an Albies. But it's definitely worth it, especially with second base being a weak position in fantasy baseball. Who is I look to buy and trade for here in Week 8 of the fantasy baseball season.